Totally I'm having around 5 years of IT experience, out of which totally completely I'm having the Informatica experience. So totally I have worked with various versions like 8.x and 9.x. So currently we are working with 9.5.1 version, and I have been handled various kinds of projects like banking domain and manufacturing and essential sectors also. And coming to the online training, totally I'm having more than 3 years of experience in the online training. So I have been handled more than some 100 batches also. So from last year onwards I'm supporting into this online training. Coming to this online training here for the Informatica. So let's have a look into let's start off with an architecture here initially. So here we can have a look into this architecture. So it's going to be Informatica 9.5.1 architecture. So if you are seeing here, totally in the Informatica majorly we'll be having two components. One is going to be a server component and another one is going to be a client component. Let me show you. So what is a server and what is a client under the Informatica PowerCenter? Server is majorly is going for the Informatica administration part. So where you are going to create a backup of the created objects, and the backend of all the services is going to be taken care under the server. Coming to the client, in the front-end applications, as a developer, we are going to handle with the client applications only. So if you're a part of a Informatica development, or if you're into some kind of migration or production kind of projects, then you'll be working with the Informatica client only. But when you are into Informatica administration, then you'll be completely focusing on the server components. So let's have a look into the architecture here. So if you have a look into this, in the left hand side you can able to see the Informatica client. These are the 4 major client tools that we are going to work out as an Informatica developer. One is going to be a repository manager, designer, workflow manager, workflow monitor. I will let you know one of the each and every tool advantage. And here in the right hand side you can able to see the source and targets. What exactly is? It might be any kind of thing. So it might be a database or flat file or XML or Oracle applications, whatever it may be. So it's how this Informatica tool is going to interact with any kind of RDBMS system. So any tool directly cannot interact with RDBMS. So in between them we are going to have the ODBC connection. ODBC stands for Open Database Connectivity. So it's just like a mediator between the Informatica client components and the RDBMS system. It will help you to establish a connection between the client and the database systems. So with the help of this ODBC, I can directly interact with either Teradata, Oracle, SQL Server, DB2, Netezza, any kind of database systems. So once I have established a ODBC connection, then I can import the any kind of a source and target table. So what is the necessity of importing the source and target table? Why? Because Informatica is nothing but a ETL tool. It just stands for extraction, transformation, loading. So where we need to extract the data, after applying the logic, to which system we need to load the data. So we should have the source and target tables, right? So that source and target tables we have to import from these database systems. With the help of the ODBC, I can directly interact from the Informatica PowerCenter to any kind of RDBMS system. So once I have connected to this any kind of RDBMS systems, I have just imported the source and target tables into the Informatica PowerCenter, and I can start designing the mapping. So what exactly mapping is? Mapping is nothing but what exactly mapping is? Mapping is nothing but it's just like a data flow diagram which you are providing a pictorial presentation of an entire ETL flow. So what exactly you are just representing a flow diagram stating like what is your source system and what kind of logic you are implementing in order to convert the data according to the business requirements and to which system you are loading the data. So all these 3 components together you are making as a data flow diagram in a single mapping itself. Okay, so once you design this mapping, once you have designed this mapping, so the mapping, the entire flow have been created. So once if I start the execution of this mapping, or once if I start the execution of this mapping, in the backend level, from the Informatica PowerCenter onwards, the data needs to be fetched from the source database, and it needs to apply the logic for each and every record, and then it needs to load the data into the target table. So all these three activities, and dynamically which service or which server is coming into the picture, that's nothing but called as, in the right hand side you can able to see Informatica server. In other words, we can call it as an integration service. So this, when we have started the execution of your mapping, from the starting of the fetching of the first record onwards until the loading of the data until the last record, each and every activity will be taken care by this Informatica server or integration service. In the right hand side you can able to see. So the entire ETL flow is going to taken care by this integration service. It's just like a heart of your Informatica PowerCenter. Okay, so the ETL flow will be completed, right? So before ETL flow, how I'm going to, once the mapping that has been designed, where I'm going to save my all the created objects, like mapping or sessions overflow, a lot of objects will be created in the Informatica PowerCenter. So all these objects, where I'm maintaining a backup, where I'm maintaining the saving all these objects into the memory. So whatever the objects that you have been created under the Informatica client tools, that is going to be saved into the Informatica level database called as a repository. So this repository also is residing under the Oracle database only, but why it is calling as a repository in the sense, it is just like a Informatica naming standards. So in the Informatica, that means this database, it just holds the Informatica level objects only, not other than things. It's not like the ordinary source or target database. It doesn't have any kind of thing. There will be a separate user account will be created under the Oracle database or any kind of things on the server, and that user account will be pointed as a repository, so that all the objects will be saved into the repository database only, and it is not going to have the access for each and every developer. Only the administrator will have the read, write, execute permissions only. None of the users will not have the access. Why? Because the entire project from the Informatica level is going to have the information under the repository. If each and every user will have the access, then anything can be done, right? So only the administrator only, or some kind of team leads, only those concerned people will be having the access for this repository database. Okay, so now you may ask the question like, this is also one of the database, and how come these objects are again saving into the database? How the connection is going to establish? Why? Because previously I said you, like, with help of the ODBC I'm interacting with that source and target tables, right? But how come these objects are again saving into the Oracle database? Here there is one more service coming into the picture. It's nothing but a repository server or repository service, which helps you to save the objects into the repository database, and as well as it will retrieve the objects from the repository database. So first of all, if you are planning to create any kind of object, or if you want to view that object, first of all you have to connect to the respective repository from the Informatica client tools. Once you have connected, then only you can work it out. So that means until if you are unable to connect to the repository database, then you are not supposed to create even single object also. Okay, so these are the two critical important services which you are having under the Informatica PowerCenter. One is going to be repository service, and another one is going to be an integration service. These are going to be a very two crucial services for the Informatica PowerCenter. So without these two services, without the repository service, we cannot create any object, or we cannot work out with any of the things. With the help of this, without the integration service, you cannot perform the ETL process. So these are the two services that are very important and very critical for the Informatica PowerCenter software. Okay, is it clear? And yeah, that's what here I had just written a short description on that, what exactly the ETL repository stores. It just shows the mapping and structure of the tables, each and everything. What all the objects that you are planning to create under the Informatica PowerCenter, all these objects will be reside under the repository only. And the integration service will performs the ETL according to the mapping that you have been designed. Okay, and here the ODBC is just like it will establish a connectivity between the client components and the database systems. So now let's have a look into the what are the main components we are having. As I already said you, these are the two major components we are having. One is client and another one is going to be server. So here are the list of all the client components. So the four major client components, and these are all related to the server components. So first of all, let's have a look into the client components here one by one. So here I just present you the PowerCenter Designer here. Okay, here I just shown you the tool-wise architecture here. So with the help of the PowerCenter Designer, I can just create the mapping on it. Okay, so mapping, as I already said you, like it's going to be an map. It's just like a data flow diagram which will shows you the a source and the logic and the target systems. Together, all these three things together we can call it as a single mapping, right? So with the help of this PowerCenter Designer, I can just create the mapping. That's it. I cannot do anything else. So how I'm going to create the mapping? So what are the things I need to interact? So here I'm in the PowerCenter Designer. So for the single mapping, I should have the source, logic, and the target systems, right? So how can I import the source table? So that is residing under one of the database. So how can I interact with the database? With the help of the ODBC. So I should have one ODBC connection in order to interact the source database, in order to import the structure of my source table. Okay, and in a similar way, I need to import the structure of the target table. So I should have one more ODBC in order to interact my target database, and then later on I will import my target table. So currently I'm having the source and the target tables, and here later on I will design a single map. So once I have designed this mapping, that mapping is going to be saved into the repository with the help of the repository service. That's it. Okay, so PowerCenter client, PowerCenter Designer is going to be just for creation of the mapping and saving that object. So once I have created this mapping, I should execute that mapping, right? So then I can perform the entire ETL process. So in the Informatica PowerCenter, you cannot directly execute a mapping. So what we have to do is, for each and every mapping, we should have a session. So what exactly a session is? Session is nothing but a task which will helps you to trigger the mapping. So it's just like a one-to-one relationship. For each and every mapping, we have to create a one session. Okay, directly in the PowerCenter Design, there is no option. We cannot directly execute a mapping. Okay, so why such kind of condition criteria here it is there? Okay, why can't we directly execute the mapping? Why? Because this, let us consider like one of the example for the big bazaar market. Okay, so we are having different kinds of departments like HR, sales, products, and marketing, and some other things. Okay, so I have created 5 different mappings. Okay, and the HR information is I have created a separate mapping, and sales for a separate mapping, and we have products and market as separate mappings. Okay, so I just want to make it just want to make the dependency between the execution of these mappings. Okay, so if I start if I have created these mappings directly, and if I execute these things, I cannot set it up any dependency here. But if I have created a sessions here, I can create a dependency in the another tool base. Okay, so there is a condition criteria like, first of all, I have to load the sales data, and then product, and then market, and then some HR, like that. Okay, so if I want to meet such kind of condition criteria, I cannot make it a condition criteria like in the mapping level. So we have to go with the session level only. In the session level, I can make such kind of dependencies. Okay, so it's just like if I create 100 mappings, then you have to create 100 sessions for that. That is a mandatory. Okay, so session is nothing but a task which will helps you to execute the mapping. So where I can create the session? This session you can just create under the workflow manager client tool. This is one of the other tool one of the client tool where you can just create a session and even one more task called workflow. So what exactly this workflow is? Why it came to the picture? Workflow is nothing but I said to you, right, we can set the dependencies. So actually here we can set the dependency in between the sessions. So I can control the execution of the flow by setting like a loading the sales data first of all, and then marketing information, product, and then HR. I can set it such kind of dependencies in the workflow environment. Okay, so for each and every mapping you have to create a session, and for each and every session you have to create a workflow. Okay, it's not like mandatory like for each and every session you need to create a workflow. First, on the single workflow you may have any number of sessions. So a mapping and session is going to have the one-to-one relationship, but whereas a session and workflow is going to have the many-to-one relationship also, or one-to-one also might be there. So it all depends upon the business requirement. So ultimately, if I start the workflow, we are going to call it as a start task of the Informatica PowerCenter. So why I'm calling it as a start task of Informatica PowerCenter is, once if I start the workflow, it is automatically pointing to the session, and session is internally pointing to the respective mapping. So ultimately my ETL process is happening by just simply clicking the start workflow button. That's it. Okay. So what, and even one more functionality, one more property here I'm having under the workflow manager is scheduling the workflow. So what exactly scheduling concept is? Scheduling is nothing but you can just automate the workflows to trigger at a particular point of time. So why, what is the necessity of these things? Why? Because is in the development environment we will manually execute the jobs, right? But whereas once the code moves into the testing on production environment, automatic, no one will trigger the jobs, right? At particular point of time, automatically the job needs to be triggered. So what we will do is, as a developer, we will schedule the jobs. We will schedule the jobs through Informatica PowerCenter. Basically, we are having some third-party tools to schedule the job. Only a very few number of clients will prefer for the Informatica scheduling. I mean, if it is a small project kind of things, then they will go for the Informatica scheduling. Otherwise, mostly they will go for the third-party scheduling tools like Tivoli, Autosys, Crontab, and Control-M. These are the leading major scheduling tools which are available currently in the market. So almost all the clients will prefer for the third-party scheduling tools only. Okay, so why they are preferring the third-party scheduling tools? Why they are not using the Informatica PowerCenter scheduling tool? Why? Because is, suppose I'm having one of the project under some British Petroleum client. Okay, so they're having a lot of sectors under the US, UK, and ANZ countries. So they're planning to develop the project for all the countries, US, UK, and ANZ. They're having some different folders under single client too. Okay, so now the code moves all into the production levels. If they want to run the jobs, and for each and every country they're having around some 500 jobs. So all this US country 500 jobs, European country 500 jobs, and ANZ country 500 jobs, all these 1500 jobs, if they're running at the parallelly from the Informatica scheduling tool, it is going to be a very tough task to monitor the jobs. As a developer, you cannot come to know what are all the jobs that are currently running, and what are all the jobs that has been already completed, and what are all the jobs that already got failed. So it's going to be highly impossible to monitor the jobs properly. There might be some jobs which needs to be triggered exactly at a particular point of time. You may miss out that figure also. So you have to be very strict in this way. You have to check it out. You have to monitor in such a way whether those jobs was being triggered at the particular point of time in the professional environment. This is going to be a very tough task in the Informatica PowerCenter. It's a very complex thing to monitor the jobs in the Informatica PowerCenter monitor. So that's why, I mean, it's not that much user friendly here. Whereas coming to third-party scheduling tools, it's very user-friendly. Based upon the job name, you can just search it on it and you can check it out whether the job was triggered or not. It's going to be user-friendly and it is going to be easier to monitor the jobs also. Okay, so that's why the client, most of the clients, and almost 90 to 95% of the clients will prefer these four scheduling tools only. Okay, and here even whatever the objects that you have created like session and workflow or even scheduling the workflows, all these objects also going to be saved into the repository with the help of the repository service. Okay, and from the workflow manager itself, I will try to start the workflow. So where I can monitor the sessions, okay, where I can see whether the current job got succeeded or failed. If it got succeeded, how much volume of data that has been loaded from my source to target table. And if it got failed, what is the reason behind that? So where I can see all such kind of statistics. So all these things you can just check it out in the workflow monitor client window. So this is the window where you can just check it out the statistics of each and every job. Okay, so all the statistics is again going to be saved into the repository with the help of the same repository service. And the last final tool is PowerCenter Repository Manager. So actually, as an Informatica developer, you will not you will be focusing on the designer, workflow manager, workflow monitor only, not that much in the repository manager. Why? Because this is limit up to administrator access only, not to each and every developer. Why? Because this repository manager window is going to be useful to create the project specific folders and to create the new users and to provide the permissions and privileges to the respective folders and the users. So each and everything is going to be related to the administrator access only. So only the Informatica administrator or team lead persons, only those people will be having the access for this repository manager window. Not all each and every ordinary developers. Okay. So each and every objects that you have been created under the repository manager is going to be saved into the repository with the help of the repository service. Okay. And finally, how many types of repositories that we are having under the Informatica PowerCenter? Totally, we are having two types of repositories. One is going to be a local, another one is a global repository. What is a local and what is a global repository? Let us consider there is one repository under the Informatica PowerCenter. There I have created a lot of objects, okay, under the single user. So I just want to share the objects. I just want to share my mapping or session to the some other users. So if I created any object under the local repository, that objects I can share within the same repository. I cannot share across the multiple repositories. Okay. But whereas if I create any object under the global repository, I can just share my objects to the each and every repository. It's just like a global access. But whereas local repository is just coming to the local access. Okay. So that's it from the Informatica basic sessions. Let me show you the sample. So what are the things that have been covered so far? I will just show you with the help of some ETL tool. Okay. So this is the repository manager here. So here this is nothing but a repository. First of all, you have to connect to this repository, and here you will be having the folder menu. So from the folder menu, just click on create, and you can just create a project specific folder like in this way. Okay, the administrator will take care of all these things. Okay, so before starting the project only, the administrator initially they will create the list of all the users and project specific folders, each and everything, whether it should be local repository or global repository. While installing only, they will set it up all these things. Okay, so here I will be created with one folder. Okay, and once the folder got created here, after that, let me create the folder here. Let me make it as a some demo like that. Okay, so here we're having a lot of options like hello shortcut and some kind of permissions. So here you'll restrict the users to control this specific folder. You can just provide who are all the users that can access this current folder demo. Okay, so all these users, if you want to add, You can just click on add, and automatically here the username will be appeared, and just click on add on respective user. Automatically that user will be appeared here, and automatically that user also can have the access on this demo folder. And here there is one checkbox button called allow shortcut. What does it mean? Shortcut is nothing but this folder, this demo folder will be behave as a, this demo shortcut folder will behave as a shareable object. So shareable in the sense, it's just like a some kind of network, right? Let us assume like there is one network, under the single network we are having some 10 different systems. So I can each and every user can connect to the network, and he can just access all these things, right? In the similar way, if I create the demo as a allow shortcut, this demo folder will be behave as a reusable folder, so that all these objects can be shared across the multiple folders under the single repository only. Okay, that is the main thing. So just click on OK. So automatically the folder has been created. Even the same folder, now I have created the folder under the repository manager, right? The same folder will be replicated to all the remaining 3 tools. Let me show it to you. From the PowerCenter Designer, I am trying to connect to my Informatica repository. See who I have connected, and it's showing automatically the demo folder. So this demo folder was I have created under the repository manager. Okay, now it's showing in the PowerCenter Designer also. See, under the demo folder we'll be having a lot of subfolders called business components, sources, targets, cubes, dimensions, transformations, and what all the things. Okay, so all the sources table will be imported into the sources folder. All targets objects, all target tables will be imported into the targets folder. And here you can see the transformations and what are the mappings that you have been created. All these mappings will be saved under the mapping folder. Okay, so these are all some kind of advanced concepts, transformations and maplets and some kind of user defined functions, all these things. So here we can just import all these things. So let me connect to the here. So here you can able to see in the right hand side, you can able to see the source analyzer. Source analyzer is a pane where you can import the structure of the source tables only. Okay, and just immediate to that there is one more icon called target designer. This is a pane where you can import the structure of the target tables only. Okay, and the last icon which shows you the mapping designer, where you can create the mapping here. Okay, so from the mappings menu you can just click on create, and your mapping name should be always in the format of m_. This is the naming standard that will be followed in each and every company's small m _ some business naming convention. Okay, so in this way the mapping will be created. So once the mapping got created, and again you can just click on this W icon, which will automatically open you the PowerCenter Workflow Manager client window. So here you can just create the sessions and workflows. So already the mapping will be created here, right? So for this mapping you can just create the session and workflow under the PowerCenter Workflow Manager window. So here you can able to see the task developer where we can create the sessions, and there is a workflow designer where you can create the workflows. And these are all some advanced topics, tasks and workflows. So these are not the basic concepts, those are some kind of advanced. So once the session got created and once the workflow got created, so here itself we will start the execution of the workflow. So once the workflow got started, so where we can just monitor in the workflow monitor window. So automatically it will trigger once the job got started. So where here you can see the once it got connected to the integration service, it will show you the list of all the jobs, whether what all the jobs that got succeeded, what all the jobs it got failure. So in this way you have to just check it out the all these things. Okay, so this is the flow. We have to go with the creation of a single workflow. the entire course content that I am going to cover throughout the Informatica syllabus. So all these documents is going to be shared to the students, and apart from this, so these are the interview docs, and these are also some kinds of performance tuning documents. So all these documents I am going to share with the students. Some kind of FAQs here, and what are all the data warehousing concepts with the slides, and even some kind of sample specification documents also will be sent across. Why? Because it will be very helpful for the practicing for the students, right? So here you are having Informatica questions and performance tuning and tutorials here for 9.5.1. Yeah, these are some Informatica real-time scenarios. Okay, and obviously, if you're seeing the course content here, let me open you the course content. So the main crucial thing is going to be for the development part is all these things, the transformations part. From here onwards, each and every topic is going to cover with the real-time scenario up to the advanced concepts, because the first part is going to be completely theoretical. Okay, so from the interview point of view also, they will be asking the real-time scenarios from here on. Okay, so for each and every transformation, including the tasks and each and everything here, whatever I have mentioned, each and everything is going to be covered with the real-time scenario.